The hits just keep coming. Yesterday, Sidney Powell said, I just had an eyeful of the government's case against the traitors. I give up. Mate, I'm tapping. I give up. I'm pleading. I'm pleading with the court to spare me because I can't win this fight. Probably a good decision because Kenneth Chesebro just did the same thing.
Another significant plea deal. I want to get straight to CNN's Nick Valencia in Atlanta. Nick.
Defense attorney for Ken Chesebro, Scott Grubman, tells CNN that we just...
It is only because that pocket square is atrocious that I will make fun of a physical attribute of this man. Should he be standing that close to an open balcony on a windy day with ears like that? Okay. All right. Sorry. Jump in there. Let him have it. Kenneth Chesebro taking a plea deal.
Saw video of Ken Chesebro signing a plea deal with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. We were under the impression that he was offered a deal, but the source familiar with those discussions happening last night said it was not clear whether Chesebro would take the deal. But now Scott Grubman telling CNN on the record just moments ago, Ken Chesebro.
Anybody else think Kenneth Chesebro has the haircut that all nervous Nazis have in movies?
The alleged architect of the fake electors plot in 20.
I know, he's a nervous Nazi in real life. I'm just saying he has the movie nervous Nazi haircut to go with it.
20. One of the key attorneys here in promoting conspiracy theories and widespread voter fraud theories that were not true in the wake of the election loss of Donald Trump has now taken a plea with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. Make no mistake about this, Dana. This is a monumental win for Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. She now not only has one, but two key witnesses against former President Donald Trump. And I'll toss it back to you as we get this courtroom underway. The judge now addressing the courtroom. We should hear the details of that plea agreement any moment now.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea, which means your attorneys and the state have reached a negotiated recommendation to make to the court?
I do.
Do you understand that the court is not bound by that recommendation and could sentence you to the maximum penalty for the charges?
I do.
Do you understand that the recommendation in this particular case as to count 15, conspiracy to commit filing false documents, is 5 years to be served on probation, a $5,000 fine, and that I believe you're asking the court to treat you as a first offender, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, $5,000 restitution. You understand that?
Yes.
And do you understand also special conditions of the probation is that you complete 100 hours of community service?
Yes.
And that you write an apology letter to the citizens of the state?
To be continued. I want to talk about that last thing. But first, let's talk about the second to last thing. He's got to do 100 hours of community service. It sucks that he's not going to, prison. He deserves to spend a full 10 years in whatever we have as the worst conditions to hold a human being. He should be up there with the murderers and the rapists and what have you. Because he betrayed the country and tried to undo your vote in the world's most famous democracy. Technically. Maybe. But a pampered little nothing like Ken Chesebro. The idea that 100 hours of his life will have to be spent making somebody else's life better for no financial compensation to that vile creature, it's gonna grind on him. The idea he might have to do some physical labor, never mind, it's just gonna be poking trash with a stick and putting in a trash bag or whatever. That is abhorrent to him. that will send him into a spiraling depression. When he's at like hour 20 and he realizes, oh my God, I've got weeks left of this, weeks left. Ugh. Helping people, ugh. He might melt. He might actually melt like he looked at the Ark of the Covenant. Let's keep tabs on this. If I forget to update it, please somebody remind me. Let's make sure he gets real community service. Not something that you can just remotely say you did. Like, oh yeah, I sent out I don't know, socks that I knitted to these charitable organizations. I in no way paid a bunch of people to, I don't know, just buy socks from a store and send them someplace. Whatever he's going to try to do to get out of actually helping people. Because he will try to get out of actually helping people for just 100 hours. Let's make sure, at a minimum, he has to fulfill every obligation, including going by the side of the road and picking up trash with a little pointy stick. By the way, to me, that sounds like a fun afternoon, but that's how I know he would despise it with every fiber of his evil little being. Now, the other thing, the letter. Let's listen to that again.
State of Georgia,
Which I have, yes.
and that you write an apology letter to the citizens of the state of Georgia?
Which I have, yes.
Yes.
He said he wrote it already. Sidney Powell said she wrote hers too. I haven't been able to find him. I've been looking. I want to see what his apology says. I also want it to be clear, they've just agreed to put their fate in the hands of prosecutors. Once prosecutors get the testimony they have out of these folks, I want us to seriously consider the content of those apology letters. What did they apologize for? And did they truly apologize? I'm not going to question whether or not they meant it. Of course they didn't mean it. They tried to get away with this. They're only sorry that they got caught. We know that, but I want to hear them say what they did. I want to hear them acknowledging responsibility that is being forced upon them. They're not taking responsibility, but I want to hear them acknowledge the responsibility. What we need to do is make sure we get those apology letters, make sure we read those apology letters. In fact, we'll do it here on the show. I will read them as soon as they're available. We need to decide amongst ourselves whether they're satisfactory, and if they are not, we should give them a chance to write another one by talking to our representatives, talking to the court, and saying, if they don't write a better apology letter, if you don't advise them to sincerely apologize, then when it comes time for sentencing, you should ignore the plea deal. Because they haven't learned anything. And they are required to experience more punishment to learn their lesson. That's what we should prepare for. First, let's make sure those apology letters get released, and then let's read them. They have to be. They're apologizing to we the people, so we will get an opportunity to see them. Let's enjoy this downfall just a bit more.
And that you truthfully testify at all hearings and trials involving co-defendants in this matter, that you have no communication with co-defendants, witnesses, or the media until all cases have been resolved against all co-defendants.
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything for you to enter into this guilty plea?
No.
It is your decision to waive these rights and enter into this guilty plea because you are in fact guilty.
Yes.
How do you
Bada
plead
boom.
to count 15, conspiracy to commit filing false documents in indictment number 23 SC 188947?
Guilty.
Have you and your attorney signed that indictment?
Yes.
Your Honor, the indictment has been signed and the guilty plea has been. Is your guilty plea freely and voluntary given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that you only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea?
Yes.
And do you understand that you would have 4 years from today's date in order to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this plea?
I do.
And Your Honor, the state has, in fact, checked and confirmed that Mr. Chesebro does not have any felony convictions at all, so he has no criminal history to the state's knowledge. If this case were to go to trial, the state would have shown the following. Between November 18th of 2020 and January 6th of 2021, the defendant and co-conspirators, Donald John Trump, Rudolph William.
Let's just appreciate this, because we did this yesterday. I'm going to do less of an intro. These are the things they were going to prove in court that Kenneth Chesebro decided, I can't fight this. They got me. I'm acknowledging that all this happened. Really appreciate that when she breaks it down.
One, the defendant and co-conspirators, Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Ray Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheeley, Michael Roman, and others entered into a criminal conspiracy to cause certain other co-conspirators, including David James Schaefer, Sean Micah Thrasher Steele, and Kathleen Austin Latham, to falsely hold themselves out as the duly elected and qualified electors for the president and vice president from Georgia following the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election. The objectives of the criminal.
On the off chance that we've got any right-wingers lurking, let me be crystal clear. Kenneth Chesebro just admitted that he lied to you about the election being stolen in 2020. If you believe that the election was stolen in 2020, now you should not. One of the people who was out there trying to make it look like there was a legitimate effort to overturn the election just admitted there was no legitimate effort. There was a criminal effort because he was lying. He was, in fact, conspiring. If you had a conspiracy theory about this, guess what? You was right. He was conspiring to lie to you about what happened. Did you fall for that lie? You want to be angry about it, you don't even have to be angry with yourself. You should be, a little bit. But you don't have to. You can just be angry at Kenneth Chesebro. And I recommend you do. I recommend you stay angry with him, because he lied to you about a hell of a lot. And the rest of the conspirators mentioned also lied. That, however, will be proven in court. Toot sweet.
No conspiracy included the following. One, to recruit certain individuals to falsely hold themselves out as the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia. Two, to create false electoral college documents, including a false certificate of vote purporting to have been made by the authority of the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia. Three, to falsely state that co-conspirator Donald John Trump had won all of Georgia's electoral college votes. And four, to deliver those false documents to the Georgia Secretary of State, the Chief Judge of the Northern District of Georgia, the Archivist of the United States, and the President of the United States citizen being the Vice President.
Liars. What was number 3 there? To falsely state that Donald John Trump won the election. To falsely state. In other words, to lie. Donald Trump lost the election. Kenneth Chesebro just admitted that. He also just admitted that he lied to you about that. You need to accept that fact and answer for it. If you are somebody who believes that the election was stolen, before you discuss anything else, you must discuss this. You must answer this. Why did Kenneth Chesebro just admit that he lied to you? Was he lying then, or is he lying now? If you, by the way, want to see the evidence for yourself, go ahead, watch the January 6th committee hearings. Unlike the committee hearings, if you're a fan of Donald John Trump, unlike the committee hearings you've seen, these actually presented evidence. There's an audio book you can listen to if you've got a free weekend that lays it all out. Or you can just look at the details of this case, the information they're going to release to the public. You can listen to Kenneth Chesebro's apology letter. But what you cannot do, person who theoretically is listening to this and supports Donald Trump, what you cannot do is ignore the fact that Kenneth Chesebro, an attorney that worked with Trump and is largely responsible for your belief that the election was stolen, just admitted in a criminal court that he lied to you. That you must address. That you cannot ignore.
The purpose of creating these and delivering these false documents were to disrupt and delay the joint session of Congress on January the 6th, 2021. By using the false documents from Georgia and other states in an attempt to cause Vice President Michael Pence to violate the Electoral College Act and the United States Constitution. This was part of a multi-state criminal conspiracy to unlawfully overturn the results of the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in favor of the co-conspirator Donald John Trump, who did not win that election. Specifically pertaining to count 15 of the indictment, federal laws require the Electoral College documents are maintained in multiple places, including the United States District Court, and where the electors met and cast votes. In the Northern District of Georgia, electoral.
First of all, electoral. Second of all, she is doing a fantastic job. Mispronunciation of mispronouncing. See, it happens to everybody. Mispronouncing one word aside. Do understand that she knows that not only are almost everyone who will ever be a peer of hers, she's in the law profession, almost everyone who will be one of her peers is watching right now. Also, most of the nation, at least a good chunk of the nation, is watching. Think about how nervous you would be if you had to give up or get up and do your job, your normal everyday job, whatever it is you do, in front of 1 million people who are watching and scrutinizing everything you do. Set aside everything else you know or you think you know about this gal and just appreciate she's plugging along and doing a fine job with the full knowledge of how many people are watching. I got a lot of respect for anybody who is willing to do that. Good on her. And she's doing a fine job.
College documents are maintained in the clerk's office, administrative staff, with other non-case related documents, including standing orders and orders from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Documents maintained in the administrative safe are public records that can be inspected by members of the public, and members of the public can request certified copies of those documents that contain the clerk's official seal. Overt acts committed to affect this object of the conspiracy included, but are not limited to, the following. 1, the defendant created and distributed false Electoral College documents to individuals in Georgia and other states in coordination with Donald John Trump for President, Inc., also known as the Trump Campaign. The defendant provided detailed instructions to co-conspirators in Georgia and other states for creating and distributing these false documents. 3,
if you're wondering, what is Trump's trial going to look like in this? There it is. Yeah, I'll give it another listen.
created and distributed false Electoral College documents to individuals in Georgia and other states in coordination with Donald John Trump for President, Inc., also known as the Trump Campaign.
Created and distributed false documents, printed lies, fraudulent papers as part of their coup attempt. There are multiple phases of the attempted overthrow of the United States government, the attempted capturing of the United States people. They tried to capture us with paperwork. Think about that. They tried to make us prisoners in our own country, and they gambled. Their strategy was based on the fact that we wouldn't do anything and that our leaders wouldn't do anything, and they were almost right. If we had not jumped after our leaders, if we had not elected people, say, that put together the January 6th committee, I don't believe we would be having this moment right now. It disturbs me how close to correct they were, but let's stick to the point. What will Donald Trump's trial look like? What they just said. It will be the lengthy process of proving in court with evidence laid out meticulously what they just said. Why aren't they laying it out now? They don't have to, because the guy in question has admitted it's all true. He saw the evidence they had, and he's admitted it's all true. Rest of this is interesting, but I want to show you something else. This here. Trump co-defendant Kenneth Chesebro strikes, we're just going to look at the title, don't worry, strikes a plea deal with Georgia prosecutors. That's today. That's today. Want to see something that's not too terribly far back? Not too terribly far back. Kenneth Chesebro rejected plea offer ahead of Georgia election interference trial, says sources. One former, this is from, when is this? October 18th. This is from 2 days ago. One of former President Donald Trump's co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case rejected a plea deal from prosecutors ahead of his trial this month. Sources familiar with the matter told ABC News. Attorney Kenneth Chesebro, one of the 18 defendants charged alongside Trump in the Fulton County racketeering case, rejected an offer from prosecutors. The sources said the deal would have allowed Chesebro to avoid prison time by pleading guilty to one felony count of racketeering, the top charge in the indictment, according to the sources. He would have had to agree to testify against his co-defendants, including Trump, in exchange for 3 years probation and a $10,000 fine. You might have noticed. The terms of the deal also included a written letter of apology. The source says the deal would have been made under Georgia's First Offender Act, note that this was, under which the conviction would have been wiped from Chesebro's record after probation was completed. Couple of things to note. He didn't take the deal then, and the deal got worse. The deal got worse because he didn't take it then, if it is what it said there. It's unfortunate that he's still under the First Offender Act. They made a point to say, and First Offender Act, we know the normies won't really look into what that is. He's a first offender, right? Okay, so we're going to wipe this. He can go back to being one of our masters as soon as his probation's up. He can go back to being royalty in the United States as soon as his probation's up. That sucks. That's an injustice. But it's worth noting, this is 2 days ago, folks. He rejected this deal last month. What happened this month? What happened the very next day after this came out, or rather after this came out? Sidney Powell flipped. On the eve of her trial, or the beginning, truly, Sidney Powell flipped, agreed to testify. Immediately following that, the very next day, Kenneth Chesebro flipped, agreed to testify. Pled guilty, admitted he did everything accused. 2 things you should know. Number 1, he believes that if Sidney Powell says everything she knows, he'll be incriminated. Thing number 2, He was willing to lie to us all. He was willing to lie to the courts in September. In September, he wasn't willing to take this deal. Is it because he didn't do it? No, it's because he thought he could get away with it. The deal got worse. It didn't get better. So it wasn't because the deal wasn't sweet enough. Because he thought he could get away with it. He cannot be allowed to practice law. He does not have the ethics necessary to practice law. I think that can be made crystal clear. He cannot be allowed to hold public office. He does not have the ethics necessary to hold public office. I don't care how we get it said officially. It needs to be said officially. And Kenneth Chesebro needs to be out of our lives forever. Enjoy opening up your, I don't know, small pottery stand under a different name after you grow out a big beard and start wearing a hat and hide your eyes. But your time, Kenneth Chesebro, as someone who is, for some reason, allowed to affect other people's lives in any way beyond bringing them their drinks when they ask for them in exchange for, hopefully, a tip, is over.